I was right in the middle of the crowd as Donald Trump was sworn in as president. As I walked through the mass of people, I met several Arkansans who made the trip. Crowds here in Washington today are rivaling some of those that we saw yesterday. Some of Donald Trump's children have taken to the stage, talking a little bit about the softer side of the candidate. Business interests back home have been some of the biggest critics of the Arkansas medical marijuana proposals. As they reach that verdict in just about 1 hour, guilty capital murder, guilty kidnapping. In order to maximize yields, some plants are allowed to grow under natural sunlight. The process takes much longer, but the plants, they get much bigger. This one right here is almost ready for harvest. It's sticky and you can sure smell it. Guys, we just were able to get into the neighborhood ground zero for where this happened. There's actually 2 vehicles in that rubble there. This is what happens when you break into a home with a trained dog. Here's one of the biggest problems trying to make this work. From side to side, this home is just over 30 feet. Good Sunday morning and welcome to Capitol View. I'm Petrimoulx. Thanks for being with us. Tax cuts and medical marijuana have been the big ticket items during the 91st General Assembly. Deputies searching for a person of interest in the death of a woman found beaten early this morning in Pulaski County. Good evening, I'm Petrimoulx. Over the next half hour, we will examine the 2 measures on the November ballot that would legalize medical marijuana in Arkansas. They all attest to how powerful this drug has been and help them recover, but yet you say it's not medicine. How can doctors be expected to prescribe something when they don't know exactly what's in it? Excuse me, Judge, we have a couple quick words with you. What do you got to say to the families? Sorry. Do you think it's fair that you only got probation? A little boy was killed in this incident. I think you could at least say something. Do you think someone that does a hit and run on a 3-year-old and doesn't turn back should not serve any jail time? Should the people of Arkansas worry at all because of these accusations of how you would be as a lieutenant governor?
No.
Deja Taylor is a straight-A student. She's president of her class and on her way to becoming valedictorian. The drive to succeed comes from her grandfather.
When he died, it took a toll on me. I just want to do something good.
But Taylor is ahead of many of her classmates. She attends J.A. Fair, one of 6 schools in the Little Rock district to be declared distressed by the state. Only 40% of students at her school pass end-of-the-year literary exams. At J.A. Fair, 95% of the students are black and 83% are on free or reduced lunch.
Every school that I have attended has been majority black.
In fact, all of the distressed schools in Little Rock are almost entirely black and economically disadvantaged. These schools exist in a city where about half the population is white, and studies have shown the power of integrated schools. A 2011 study published in the National Bureau of Economic Research found black students who went to integrated schools were more likely to attend college and earn a degree. They eventually made more money and were less likely to spend time in jail. Another from 2005 by Columbia University showed the socioeconomic status of classmates is more important than the student's own status when determining educational success.
It's very difficult if you have a school where a significant number of the students are low performing.
Dennis Glasgow has been with the school district for more than 40 years. He says busing programs did increase diversity in Little Rock public schools, but there was a backlash.
We've lost a lot of students who are the easier to educate, the higher performing students, to private schools and charter schools.
Over the last 20 years, the number of white students in the district has been cut nearly in half, while the number of black students has stayed relatively even. And now Glasgow says there's not enough diversity to achieve results the studies show are possible.
And the research shows if we can get about 25% of the kids with the upper reading levels, they begin to pull up the kids who are below them. 60% or more of our African-American population are our
Jim
grade.
Ross is a former Little Rock School Board member who's been involved with education policy in the city for 15 years. He's been pushing for educational reforms aimed at reaching minority students and a redrawing of school zones to achieve greater racial diversity. But he says white parents have a social responsibility to send their kids to diverse schools.
Quit being afraid and go ahead and put that behind us.
The counterpoint to that is true open enrollment.
Gary Newton is with the pro-charter school group Arkansas Learns. He says the answer to a lack of diversity is more choice.
If you have centers of excellence, no matter where they are, whether it's a charter or traditional school, then people want to get to that.
For now, the Little Rock School District appears to be at a crossroads. The state took over earlier this year, a move that prompted 2 lawsuits and the renewing of a legal fight that's been ongoing for 60 years.
Everybody's on the roll sheet.
I think if schools reflected how the world really is, that would be better, because the world is not majority black.
Learn how to reduce test anxiety.
Deja Taylor recently got a wake-up call when she was chosen to participate in Governor's School, a summer study program with the top students across the state.
And the stuff that we go over in my school, apparently it's not what they go over in their school, and it just made me feel behind.
Taylor says that's driving her to work twice as hard. She's committed to becoming a chemical engineer. But sadly, that feeling of being behind is something many of her classmates do not overcome. In Little Rock, Drew Petrimoulx, Fox 16 News.
There's one over here.
Tim Reeves is a retired teacher, a father of 3 who's been married to his wife for nearly 50 years.
Those are nice. Okay, I'll take those in.
But it was 18 years ago that he got the diagnosis that would change his life: metastatic prostate cancer.
I was not able to have it surgically removed. They'd had to go all over my body.
3 rounds of chemo failed to rid the cancer and left him with a slew of health problems. At age 67, he tried marijuana for the very first time.
I don't know what the answer is for other people, but I know it's worked for me.
Oncology, radiation oncology.
Reeves got the go-ahead from his oncologist, Dr. Annette Fontaine, who says she prescribes cannabis to about 1 in 20 of her cancer patients.
The medical marijuana helps with their appetite so they can maintain their nutrition during treatment. They're having significant fatigue, having significant nausea. These are the patients that benefit the most.
Fontaine says she used to prescribe the marijuana derivative Marinol before the full cannabis plant was legalized for medicine. It's a drug that's currently available in Arkansas, but she says the impact is not the same.
I would say that there are benefits with medical marijuana that is not available with Marinol.
The future of Arkansas.
Marijuana is grown by 35 providers in New Mexico. This operation just outside Albuquerque, owned by a company called Ultra Health, is one of the most advanced. People with a government-issued license can buy a variety of marijuana products at dispensaries across the state.
Antibiotic ointment at home.
But it's not just cancer patients. New Mexico doctors say they've also seen benefits for those with chronic pain, autoimmune and inflammatory diseases, and that it's been a big help to children suffering from epileptic seizures.
Doctors make difficult decisions in managing patients every day, all the time. And yes, I think, the community can trust the physician to do the right thing and prescribe it for the patient that would benefit.
At night, they don't like a bright flashlight.
Tim Reeves says he's one of those patients. He says his health and spirit have improved since he began using medical marijuana.
It needs to be legalized and made an honorable thing that's just like any other medicine.
Tammy Harper has stacks upon stacks of paperwork relating to the case. Her crusade starting 12 years ago when her world came crashing down.
She just told me that she needed to talk to me.
Harper's daughter, Brittany Humphrey, just a 3rd grader.
She just said, "Mama, Mr. Floss has been touching me." When she said that, I just grabbed her and fell to the floor with her and just cried with her.
Brian Floss, a former teacher at Wallace Elementary in Fordyce, was sentenced to 15 years behind bars in 2003. It wasn't long before Floss was eligible for parole, but every year that his case goes before the parole board, Tammy is there to read a letter from her daughter.
I just begged for him not to let him out.
The letters talk about the fear of Floss being released, but as these victims fight to keep a convicted predator locked up, there's a lot they don't know.
I tried to find out things, but I couldn't find out nothing.
The Arkansas Department of Corrections says crimes committed behind bars are investigated by state police. ADC says there were 58 investigations from January 1st to August 30th of this year.
It's an incomplete picture.
State Senator David Sanders says state police investigations only shed light on a fraction of the trouble that goes on behind bars. Sanders says many crimes and other prison policy infractions are investigated internally, those records not available to the public.
We need transparency in the state of Arkansas with regard to the complete public record of criminal files. We don't have it, and we're paying the price because of that.
Sanders says it keeps lawmakers, the media, the public, and crime victims in the dark about how convicts behave in prison.
So unfair. So unfair.
Can you understand the frustration that some might have?
I can understand the concern that people might have in wanting to know everything that someone has done, but there are also issues that we have to consider as far as safety and security of our prison go.
But Sanders says states like Arizona, Kansas, Florida, and North Carolina provide the public with more complete pictures of how prisoners behave.
He's affected my life from the day that it happened and for the rest of my life.
Brittany Humphrey uses what happened to her as motivation to help others living the same nightmare. She competes in pageants, recently finishing in the top 10 for Miss Arkansas, and speaks openly about the abuse she faced as a child.
And so within the last year, I decided it's time to go before the parole board myself, and then this year I went on my own.
This year, for the first time, she read her letter in person. Floss was denied parole again, but count her among those calling for the public to know more about what happens behind prison walls.
It's not going to completely ease the pain, but I think that we should be able to know those things.